Monday on Daily Delivery, first NFL Monday of the season. Patrick Reusse here with me. I am Michael Rand. Patrick, like two very different ships passing each other in the night. The Twins kind of drifting out aimlessly to sea, putting their season not officially to bed, but 4.5 behind Cleveland now after that ridiculous, awful series. But the Vikings making people forget on Sunday, 23-7 over Green Bay. I think we're going to start there, obviously, because that's the big story of the weekend. And just Kevin O'Connell's debut as head coach, they looked really good in a lot of facets of the game, and Green Bay, quite frankly, did not. I've got plenty of thoughts on the game. We talked about some of it already before we even hit record, but let's get right to it. What did you? What were the biggest takeaways you had from this game?
Why did they only get 23?
They left some on the table. Yeah.
Takeaway. That was the same old BS. They left a lot of points on the tip. They should have, the way they dominated that game, the way they could do everything they wanted to. How'd they only get 23? They should have had 30, at least. But I guess they could, one reason being they could be really conservative in the fourth quarter, and because they knew they were going to win the game because the Packers couldn't do anything offensively. So they, to me, the big takeaway is how good the defense was. Obviously, how good Justin Jefferson was the first half, but how good the defense was and how they basically threw around. Now, let's remember the Packers' two best offensive linemen weren't playing. The tackles weren't playing, which has, you take Brian O'Neill and Darrisaw out of the Vikings lineup, and maybe they would have got a little more pressure on Kirk too. So,
yes.
Although, Bakhtiari missing isn't even a story anymore with them. He plays about 1 out of every 12 games over there anyway. He's hurt all the time. But, they dominated them. Once I saw their injury list in the morning that they weren't going to have that Lazard, who supposedly is the one receiver who knows which direction to run in when he's told to do so. They look good. The new guy, Jordan Hicks, had 12, 13 tackles. And, the guy they got from the Packers has had a good game too. He put some pressure on Rodgers, and, they were around Rodgers a lot. They could have had more sacks, and they just dominated the game. I can't say I was surprised, but they right now watch the Bears somehow win that game against the 49ers, mostly because of the way Trey Lance played, and for the 49ers as a quarterback, and then the Lions being the same old Lions, and the Packers not being close to what they were. It's looking good already for this first season for O'Connell, I would say.
Not a great day for North Dakota State football players. You already mentioned Trey Lance, and then Christian Watson, Packers. He was he
first rounder,
second rounder? I'm trying to remember
exactly
where he was.
Their highest drafted receiver in a while. Yeah. They had 2 first rounders. Wasn't he one of them? Maybe it was a second rounder. I don't know. But no, their first 2 draft choices were both defense.
Both defense. Yeah, I think he was a high second rounder.
He was a high second rounder, but he was the first receiver they've given Rodgers. And Rodgers' first thing he did was go over and hug Justin Jefferson, because I remember Rob Demoski told me that before that draft, he was telling, not publicly, but telling people that's the guy he wanted the Packers to get, to figure out a way to trade up and get him. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to out hustle the Vikings to get him, but he's the guy that Rodgers wanted in that first round. And when they ended up drafting Jordan Love,
right?
And I gotta think. I said this all last week. He came back for the money. He did not come back. He got in a situation where there was no place he was going to get paid more money than he was in Green Bay. So he decided to stay. He knows that the 13-3s and playing at home in the NFC title game are over. He knows that ship has sailed, and but he came back anyway, and now he's going to play out play 3 more years, put up great numbers, and not go anywhere with this team. I don't like him at all. So anyway, the Vikings got the good first team. I think they really got the first. We don't know about anything about the second, about the backups, but I like their first team talent.
Yeah, a couple things on that. First, the one thing that did surprise me, and I was more pessimistic than anybody else on our staff coming into the year. I had them at 7-10, and one of the reasons was we just didn't know beyond what we've seen in the past. We just had no real idea on how this team would look. They'd given us such a mystery in the preseason, and they hadn't played anybody, hadn't really even done, just didn't know how they'd be able to match physically without doing anything much at all. And I think Kevin O'Connell addressed that in his right away post game, just that they looked ready to play. They looked like they were on speed, physically ready to play. Any new system problems didn't seem to be an issue. They seemed like they had it all down. And that was the surprise to me, that they could come into a game where they have a brand new coach, brand new systems, hadn't really done anything in the preseason with their first team, and look very crisp.
Yes, and I think that the teams getting a first look at how Donatel has a long history of being a defensive coordinator, so they probably had a good idea. But having gotten a look at the way they're going to play defense and how deep they're playing, and basically leaving the middle of the field where you have to throw all your passes, like 8 yards down the field, 10 yards down the field behind the linebackers, that little middle area that they left open with the safeties playing way back. It was I don't know, that's not a Tampa 2. I don't know what it is. It's kind of an umbrella defense, they call it, but the Packers did not have. I would think Devontae Adams would have had a field day working in that middle area, but they didn't have anybody to take advantage. So it'll be interesting to see if the other teams that they're playing now kind of adjust to that, more to that defense. But as long as you're getting past, as long as you're getting a pass rush, that's modern NFL defense, is because of what you can't do with receivers and everything. Modern NFL defenses, can you make the quarterback miserable or not? Right?
Yes.
Can you put pressure on him? And yesterday they showed that they could put a lot of pressure on him. So if it continues that way, then they're going to have a good year, I think. And if they stay healthy, Hunter and
Darius Smith,
both missed last season basically, and have a little injury history. So we'll see. You never know. Week 1 you can look great. Week 5, if you got 5 guys out of the lineup, you don't look so great. It depends upon who gets hurt and who doesn't.
MGM Wine and Spirits is the choice for savings, service, and a great selection of spirits, pre-mixed cocktails, wines, and of course, ice-cold beers and hard seltzers. With over 30 locations throughout the Twin Cities and beyond, there's an MGM near you. Head to mgmwineandspirits.com to find a convenient location in your area. Get social. Follow MGM on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest news and trends. Make great moments with MGM Wine and Spirits, your locally owned and operated choice for over 50 years. Save time, save money. Shop MGM.
Yeah, and we've been saying that all along, and that's the good thing to remember here is, they looked like they came out of that game reasonably healthy, but their depth is still a question. But yeah, to that point, I think that new defense with Donatel is interesting. And I want to get back to Rodgers in a minute, but the defense itself, I think one of the things that they've said is kind of a hallmark of it is, you give teams different looks. Even a veteran like Rodgers, who's probably seen it all, looked like he was, kind of holding the ball a little bit, kind of second guessing where he was going to go with it. And some of that could be new receivers not having that full trust. And we'll get back to that in a minute. But the idea of some of that defense is to confuse the quarterback long enough that your pass rush can get to him, or that give those defensive backs a little bit of extra time to make sure they're getting the coverage. So it might not always be that they're always in the right places, but if they're confusing the quarterback enough, like it seemed like a couple times Rodgers had guys open, he just maybe didn't have the right pre-snap read, or something wasn't going right with the way they were going. And by the time he figured it out, the pass rush was there.
Yeah, after you played the Packers, after he's played the Vikings 16 times in the last 8 years, or he actually got hurt one year, but when Anthony Barr took that horrendous cheap shot against him and upset Packer Nation. But I'm sure he had no idea what to really expect. I mean, they've seen Donatell's defense, but you don't know how he's going to play it with different personnel. So between him and having a bunch of receivers, I think he played one series, right, in the exhibition games with these clowns that he has now. These guys, and it's the Packers. I'm sure the fans are all upset, but they were all upset a year ago too when they got humiliated by the Saints in Jacksonville, and we'll see if they bounce back. But I don't know. What do you think of their defense? They couldn't cover Jefferson. They weren't really getting that much pressure on Cousins either. I didn't think so. They're supposedly that's their ticket this year is playing defense. So we'll see if they get better or not.
Yeah, I thought their run game was actually pretty good, and they probably could have done more with that. And you're right, though. I thought the Vikings offensive line, aside from early on, they got they got some interior pressure, Bradbury, Ingram, that could still be a little spotty. But overall, I thought the offensive line for the Vikings held up pretty well. And that I don't know if it's them playing well or maybe the Packers not having as good of a defensive line as we think, but they've got players there. Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, those guys were playing. Those guys were making some plays, but maybe not as many as we're used to seeing. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for the Packers was that you're right. I mean, I don't know if Rodgers is just in it for the money. I'd love to think that, but I think the biggest thing you could look at that game and say for sure is that was like a top 5 Aaron Rodgers bad body language Hall of Fame game. He just yeah. from the first drop from Watson, the look on his face, just like, oh, are you kidding me?
Can you imagine though that you have a play to start the season? You got your highest draft choice receiver who you must assume has talent. He runs by the defense. It's a touchdown and he drops it. And
yes.
You're Aaron Rodgers, who has little patience for receivers who screw up at the best of times. And that's you knew how that you knew who was going to win that game as soon as Watson dropped that pass. God almighty. It was what a way to start. It was brutal.
And then he wouldn't throw. Then he wouldn't throw to the wide receivers for like not just Watson, like none of the wide receivers. He wouldn't throw to him, and I don't know if he just doesn't have anybody he trusts right now.
Well, I know he gave some dirty looks to those the other two guys. Didn't they have like two other rookies running around out there?
Yeah, too? Romeo Dubes and somebody else. Yeah.
He doesn't even have Kumaro and all.
He's got Randall Cobb still. Randall Cobb's got a job forever, but
Randall Cobb's the only guy, and Randall Cobb is a shadow of what he was 5 years ago. And as we were talking about this before we came on, they were showing the graphic late in the first half yesterday that Devontae Adams had 112 yards so far, and the Vikings and the Packers receivers had 6 at some point.
I know.
Late in the first half. So it was I don't go to Viking games, thank God. I don't have to go to those things and go down there. I hate that stadium. You wander around for hours trying to figure out where the hell you are. And, if you're not in some exclusive ticket area, they make you walk all over here. And let's bring back the dome as far as I'm concerned. But it doesn't, when you're listening, on TV, it doesn't sound loud. But I'm sure it's loud in there, right? But out,
yes,
it does not sound loud when you're watching on TV. I think maybe that's why the TV people like it, right? Because it's well lit because you got the sun coming in on a day like that. It's lit way different, but it's not loud. I mean, they show the pregame, the whole skull stupidity and that thing, but And then you get the impression, but during the game, it's not like the old dome where even watching on TV you couldn't hear. It doesn't come off as loud watching on television. But then again, I think I've been there for one Viking game. The Bears lost to at the end of the season, Zim's year, that they if they beat the Bears, they make the playoffs. That's the
2018 probably. Yeah.
And the Super Bowl.
Right.
2 or 3 prep bowls and a couple of baseball games. That's the only time I've been in that place. So, and if I can stay away for the rest of my life, I'll be happy. So anyway, but it doesn't come off as a place that's hard, that is hard to play for the opposition as the Metrodome was. But maybe inside it's different. I don't know. But watching on TV, you couldn't hear, what the announcers saying halftime with the dome, and that's not the case in the big airport hangar they have there. So.
Yeah, I think it probably just it gets as loud, but the sound has more places to go than it did at the
yes, it does.
than it did at the dome. The dome would just trap that sound. A couple more things on the Vikings before we get to the Twins, maybe some Gophers too. The Big Ten suddenly looking, maybe not even suddenly, but looking very inviting at this point after the weekend some of the Gophers chief rivals had. We haven't even mentioned the quarterback's name yet. The Vikings quarterback, Kirk Cousins. He was very good. What's interesting is, we create these storylines. We create this kind of idea of what might change, what might look better for a team going into the season. And very rarely does it kind of look as good as the team might have imagined in the first game, with Cousins playing very well, very efficiently, and Justin Jefferson, like the thought going into the season was like he's gonna have this breakout explosive year, and it's like, well, he's been the leading receiver over the last 2 years in the entire NFL. Like, what other year does he have? And then he has this game, 9 catches, 184, 2 touchdowns, where you're like, okay, I guess that's the other gear. They've got to just be over the moon with how that all looked, and he's not gonna have that game every day, but there did seem to be a different element to the offense with Jefferson moving around more, in motion more, and just getting, frankly, wide open on a few of those plays. And Cousins, stepping up in the pocket, finding him at certain times, and things that we haven't seen him necessarily do all the time either.
And moving a little,
yes,
too. Cousins moved a little too. So yeah, he had a great day. As I said, you watch that game, you see the plays they made, you wonder why they didn't score 30. But again, they sat on the ball the fourth quarter, so maybe that was it. But I had predicted in the morning when I saw the injured list, seriously predicted 30-13 Vikings, and so I wanted that last touchdown. I wanted them to get to 30, and they didn't get there. But yeah, it was there wasn't much to complain about, that's for sure. So we'll and he looked good, and now all the Kirk lovers can. And the first time they get late in the game and he doesn't lead them down to the points they need, then you can get mad at him again, folks. That's the way it works with quarterbacks, right?
It's the way it works in sports.
That's true.
Everybody's thrilled right now until they're not. Like I said at the jump, Patrick, this one, it was almost like I said, 2 ships passing in the night. Maybe that's too much of a cliche, but just the Vikings ascending in this game right as the Twins were finishing, getting swept by the Guardians, going from 1.5 back to 4.5 back. And just I know they put a little bit of a scare into Cleveland late Friday after the rain delay, and late Saturday where they got
it's never a scare if they get to Class A. If Cleveland gets to Class A, it's over.
Yeah.
Okay. They might get a runner on base, but nobody's going to take him deep. So, no, they're playing with their B squad, and their pitching's mediocre. And this Jorge Lopez, my guy, they got Jorge Lopez. I don't know what the hell is wrong with him. He won't throw strikes. He's the life on his pitches is about half what it was in Baltimore. I guess he's an emotionally wired up guy. He's a wired up unconfident guy. When things aren't going well, he's not. He's got a little Jose Barrios in him, right? When things go bad, they go bad. And but he's been a big disappointment, and they gave away a lot to get him. Malley, of course, is, they gave even more to get him, and they're getting nothing out of him. And look at that lineup. That lineup can't compete. They can't compete with that collection. They got 4 guys at the top of the order, now 3, and the 4. Well, not Kepler. I wouldn't count him. I mean, you start off. You got Arise. You got Arise, Correa, and Miranda. Those are the last 3 guys you got to get a hit that counts. They got 6 guys coming up that are outs, for God's sake. So it's they're where they belong, and they're going to get worse. And I think when they went into their first dive, I said 78 and 84. They might not be that good. They might not make 78.
I mean, they're under 500 now.
They got to win 9 out of their last 23, is it?
Yeah, 9 out of the last 23.
I don't know if they can. They're they had what you need, right, for a year. You got to stay relevant into August. And then after that, if you go in the tank, fine. It's not the way it used to be, but because of that used to kind of be the theory when only 4 teams went in the playoffs, but now it's playoffs or bust. But the fans haven't really reacted to that this year. Baseball in trouble in general, people upset, but there is this perception that they've same old Twins have been terrible forever. Well, they did win 101 games in 2019. They won the most games they ever have in franchise history. The next year, they were 36 and 24 during the pandemic. They weren't as good, but they were 36 and 24. That's another.
It's like 97, 98 win pace. Yeah.
Right. So this is only a 2-year stretch here, but last year they were terrible. And now with what they gave up and going in the tank, they're going to finish 3rd. There's no drama left with this team. They've given it up. I mean, they're just not good enough. Kepler's out now, which may be good or bad. That depends upon your view. But, plus, the tip off to me, when they signed Billy Hamilton.
Yeah.
Billy Hamilton. I could go down here to the Bassett Creek Park on a Sunday afternoon, and they got pickup games going down there with adults, and he couldn't hit a ball out of the park down there. It's what is he doing here? Why did you bring this guy in here? A slap hitting base stealer. And at the time they said, it's got nothing to do with Buxton. We aren't going to see Buxton, right?
No.
Have we realized that?
I don't think so. I mean, not at this point.
He's packing it in. And now Polanco is, I know Rocco was asked Friday, is Polanco going to play tomorrow? Polo, as all the Raiders call him. Polo. Polanco, when he's not playing, you got issues, right? Because he's the warrior, and
right.
You don't question whether he's hurt or not, whether he's gentlemanly. I shouldn't say this, but they had Buxton doing the ad for the military guys, thanking the military guys yesterday. Yeah, wrong guy. Get somebody who plays.
Right.
Get somebody who plays. I don't. It's it's been kind of a mirage they had this streak, they were 26-9. Did they have a run of 26-9?
Yeah, something like that. They got to,
since then they've been mediocre or worse. And
they got to like 11 games over 500 sometime in May, and then it's been since then.
Yeah. It's one of those they can just, wind her down now and just play it out. And there'll be about, starting Tuesday night, you'll have about 9,000 people there for Kansas City for 3 games. And then you go out on the road, and the Whiteys in Cleveland are going to be interesting, but the Twins, no matter what they might have been telling you, 4.5. Okay. They got 23 left, 4.5 out. They play Cleveland 5 times. Here's their problem, Mike. When you looked at this series, what pitching matchup favored them?
Exactly.
And 0 for 3. No,
I mean,
0 for 3.
And that was the thing, right? This was kind of their pitching plan exposed, because the first 2 starters in the series were Bundy and Archer, who were, the guys they signed in the offseason to kind of shore up the rotation. Those guys have been, healthy enough to pitch by and large, and they've done okay. We've talked about Dylan Bundy being probably better than he's held them together pretty well, but both he and Archer can't or won't pitch. I think in Bundy's case, they don't let him, but in Archer's case, he's been this kind of 4-inning guy all year. Like the pitching plan was bad all year. Then you go into this kind of must-win, must-have series, and those are the two guys you got lined up to pitch.
And the pressure having Archer make all these starts,
yes,
puts on the rest of the pitching staff is untenable. It's idiotic. It's like pitching an opener every 5 days is your regular. God love him. If he could pitch out of the bullpen, he'd be okay. But I thought when they when they sent Smeltzer back the first time that they were going to release him, I thought, okay, this is leave. That was like 3 2/3, and he'd had about 5 starts in a row where he hadn't gone beyond 4. And I said, you can't keep putting the number of bullpen innings they pitched. Last time I looked was like 2nd in the majors or 3rd in the majors, in Tampa, which does it on purpose by having about 2 openers every time. You can't have that guy in your rotation all year. It doesn't work. It puts too damn much pressure on the bullpen. And everything they've done, they've traded for 2 pitchers who were hurt, a bad elbow and a bad shoulder. I don't know. Everything they've done has just been idiotic personnel. On Billy Hamilton, don't get me started. I've already started on that. What is he doing here? What is he doing here? He's been with 10 organizations in 4 years. He's 3 of them he never got to the big leagues with. But what? What are you doing? God Almighty! And you got him here. He doesn't ever play. I just don't get them. That's I kind of wrote for Saturday, hey, they can't win with this lineup. It's the injuries that have ruined them, but some predictable injuries, Buxton, and some unpredictable injuries, and Kepler being terrible. And, but what I think really hurt him was Kirilloff getting hurt. And Larnach getting hurt. And you had like Jake Cave was your 7th or 8th outfielder when the season started.
They tried like hell not to have to call him up.
Yes, they did. They did everything. They call him Contreras. They call him everything. Now he's a fixture in the lineup for the last month. He's been a fixture. It's this is just to me, you enter next season with zero optimism. Zero optimism. I mean, you can't sell us on the idea that Buxton's going to play, right?
Right. Like the only thing I'd say about next year is, I mean, you wouldn't think the pitching can be as snake bit or as injury riddled as it was this year, the whole lineup. And you do, I mean, at a certain point, you do have some starting pitching options next year that maybe you didn't have this year. I mean, you got Kenta Maeda should be back, right? I mean, he'll be back from his Tommy John, and that's a guy who was, awfully good in 2020 and had a pretty good track record before that, before he had, the 2021 season that was cut short by the Tommy John, and he was struggling that year, but I'm guessing a lot of that was probably the Tommy John influence. And then you've got, you would imagine hopefully Malley gets sorted out, whatever gets sorted out. He's still under contract next year. I don't know what Paddock's status will be next year, but he had his Tommy John early enough that he could help you sometime next year. Joe Ryan, Sonny Gray, Bailey Ober. I mean, like, Josh Winder, like whoever's coming up from the minors. Let's see Louis Varland again. I mean, like they've got a lot of options now because they've had to burn through a lot of these guys. And so many of these guys have been hurt and they've had to replace them. But your point is a good one. Like we shouldn't have optimism because they always seem to get hurt. Something always does seem to happen.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Here's another one that gets me. Now, Louis Varland comes in. He's their best pitcher they had last week. Would you agree on that? Him and Sonny Gray was pretty good. But Louis Varland was outstanding for 6 innings, did not seem intimidated by anything in Yankee Stadium. And you make him the 29th guy and then option him out. Now he can't pitch for 15 days. Now Archer's probably going to be DL'd so they can call him up, I think. If they can call up a option pitcher if somebody gets injured. And so Archer's probably going to go on the DL. But why is he not on your roster to pitch Tuesday? Why is he not on your roster to pitch Tuesday? Why is he not in your rotation? So you can keep Chris Archer. What is it? This loyalty to Chris Archer is unbelievable. I don't know what the hell's going on with these guys. I think that somebody is going to get to Wes Johnson and find out that it wasn't the lure of having to be at LSU in midseason that got him out of here. I think the pitching geniuses upstairs might have driven him nuts. Josh Polk and the boys who
interesting
think they're geniuses. I just don't buy it. I don't.
One too many sliders.
I don't buy the fact that, boy, in order to help them with the recruiting of transfers, they did West there at the middle of the season. That is crap because they, in the Zoom era, if they got a transfer that they want schmoozed up, they can get Wes on Zoom and he can BS them for an hour.
Right.
There's something that was going on there that we don't know about. And Wes, if he ever wants to get back into majors, probably would be smart of him to be ripping the Twins. So if it's telling somebody the truth. So we'll probably never know, but I don't buy it. I don't buy that he bailed out of here because, I buy that he was going to leave for LSU for twice as much money, but I don't buy the idea that he had to leave at midseason.
No. Patrick, let's finish up quick with some Gophers football talk. We didn't learn much, I don't think, from those first 2 games, the quality of opponent with New Mexico State and then Western Illinois. Not exceedingly high. Gophers, what was it, 62-10 the other day, so that would make it 100-10.
Last year's 9th place team in the Mo Valley FCS. So that's about how bad North Dakota State would beat them too, but it could have been worse. So yeah, we haven't learned anything about them, but we learned a whole bunch about the West.
Yes.
Nebraska. Hey, congratulations to Scott Frost. He figured out a way to lose that game so that they were forced to get rid of him 2 weeks before his buyout went from 15 million to 7.5. So I wonder if his halftime speech was, come on, guys, let's give up that last touchdown to Georgia Southern. And then I'll get fired on Sunday and I'll get my whole 15 million.
I didn't see that. That's great.
Yeah. I got October 1st. It would have been 7.5, but they couldn't wait. I'm sure there was 3 businessmen in Nebraska who said, we'll pay the 7.5, get rid of him now. So that just shows you how much money they have in these football teams. But they're terrible. And Iowa was on the 1. They were driving for a touchdown. They fumbled on the 1, and then they let Iowa State drive 99 yards to win the game.
Yes.
And then Wisconsin, I watched about 10 minutes of that. They couldn't run it. They couldn't move the ball at all against Washington State. Not exactly famous for its defense, but they're still terribly run heavy. They have no confidence in Graham Mertz for good reason. And who's the one team that could be trouble for the Gophers? Purdue. Yeah. Purdue's might not be bad. They lost their opener to Penn State, blew a lead, and then they got some athletes and they throw it around and they got some explosive offense, which Iowa has no offense. No. Wisconsin has Wisconsin has looked to be very. This is not one of those Wisconsin offensive lines that picks you up and throws you out of the way.
No.
So and Nebraska is, where the hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Tim Brewster.
Okay.
Record at Minnesota 15 and 30. Scott Frost, record at Nebraska 16 and 31.
Oh, wow.
They were both 15 under.
Wow.
Frost, 16 and 31 at
Yikes.
Nebraska.
And how many
in the West?
And how many of those losses were like excruciating? Because didn't they have?
Oh yeah,
wasn't all the fourth quarter 1-score games that they had the stat on Frost at the 1-score games? And by the way, in the West and Northwestern lost to Duke.
Yes, right.
So
that's right here that lost to Duke at home or something.
Yeah. So the West is wide open, maybe more open than it's ever going to be and ever has been.
Illinois, you could say Illinois is a little better, except they lost to Indiana.
Right.
So yeah, it's there. I mean, this is the Gophers are, maybe their defense is. We don't know if their defense is as good as it looked. That's what you were worried about, and they got the offensive coordinator back who believes in the forward pass, so that's good. And the other guy didn't. So yeah, I mean, they are the favorites right now, and there's no reason to think that they can't win the West. And hey, Ohio State didn't look invincible either against Arkansas State. Maybe we have a chance in the conference championship.
There you go. Just not getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
We are getting a little ahead of ourselves. I think a case could be made. That might be a column for me. Do the Gopher Ohio State matchup like this week for the
right.
Do the looking ahead.
I've seen enough Gophers against Ohio State.
Looking ahead, I don't know. Ohio State might not be what they were.
I like it.
We're better than we've been. So
what we do here when Vikings win week 1 against the Packers, and suddenly people have Super Bowl aspirations.
It is the modern era of college football, though. They got some transfers in here, right? They have no freshmen. On this team. They were 55th in recruiting and last in the Big Ten as far as the outfit I look at on 3, because on 3 doesn't give automatic 3 stars like everybody else does. And yet they're loaded. I mean, they're really good. They rebuilt the offensive line, it seems, and defensively they look good again. So we'll see. Now Colorado's only been outscored 73-21 by or 79-21 by TCU and Air Force. Air Force beat them bloody Saturday. So they're gonna, Colorado's not even hardly a step up from what they played so far. So we'll wait till the Big Ten, but the schedule's easy. Everybody else, like Wisconsin, as putrid as they looked, they also have to play Michigan and Wisconsin. Michigan and Ohio State, the Gophers don't have to play either.
Yeah.
So the schedule's there. The competition's there. If they don't do it this year, they'll never do it. So.
Mark it down. September 12th, the day everybody had a lot of optimism about Minnesota football, both Gophers and Vikings. We'll see how we feel in late October, early November.
One last thing. What's wrong with our Loons?
I don't know. Maybe they've gone in the tank.
Haven't scored in 3 games. What happened?
And they're giving up 3 a game in some of those too. It's
they gave up 1 this last time.
Only 1, but that's if you don't get any, that's not good. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with them. We're down to 6th in the table, Patrick. We don't like that.
That hurts us from having that home game for the big goal.
It's all still very bunched up, and then there's not a whole lot of season left. But yeah, they were rolling pretty good, and now they're still in pretty good shape to make the playoffs, at least, because they just probably need a handful of points in these last games and whatnot. And they've got some winnable games coming up. But LAFC tomorrow will not be a picnic. So they've got some work to do here still just to make the playoffs. LAFC, the first place team in the West. So
you can't beat those having a sellout crowd of 19,000 that for every game, and 16,000 of them don't give a damn if you win or lose. They're just there to have a good time. So yeah, that's the kind of audience you want. Kind of like the Wild audience, they're just there to have a good time. So
good times had by all. Patrick, love catching up with you again. We'll do it again next week.
All right, sir. Thanks, Mike.